Dreams are supposed to be safe, a place where you rest, where your mind wanders freely through the fragments of your life. But in Springwood, dreams have become a trap, because here, if you fall asleep, you might never wake up. This is the story of a nightmare that doesn't end when you open your eyes. The story of fear buried in memory and vengeance that haunts the innocent. The story of Freddy Krueger. It begins late at night. Rain falls softly over the small town of Springwood. Inside a lonely roadside diner, the fluorescent lights flicker. A young man named Dean Russell sits at a corner booth, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. He's been awake for days, barely holding on. His coffee's gone cold. The waitress, Nancy, notices his trembling hands. She tries to comfort him, asks if he's okay, but Dean isn't listening. He sees something. Movement at the edge of the room. A shadow. Then the faint sound of metal scraping against metal. The lights dim. The world shifts. He's dreaming. The walls of the diner stretch and twist. Suddenly, he's alone, trapped inside his own nightmare. And from the darkness comes a voice, low, taunting, familiar. "You can't run from me." Then he appears, a burned man in a tattered striped sweater, wearing a weathered fedora. His right hand gleams with knives welded to a glove. Freddy Krueger. Dean screams. He stumbles backward, trying to wake up, trying to claw his way out of the dream. But Freddy slashes. Dean's throat opens. Blood spills across the diner floor. And in the waking world, Nancy watches in horror as Dean's hand moves on its own, dragging a steak knife across his own neck. Everyone screams. Dean falls. And the nightmare begins again for everyone else. Days later, the town gathers for Dean's funeral. Friends stand silently in black. Nancy, Chris, and Jesse, all haunted by the same question. Why would he do it? But Chris can't let it go. She was with Dean that night. She saw the terror in his eyes. And before he died, he said a name. Freddy. A name she doesn't remember, but it feels familiar. Too familiar. That night, Chris lies in bed, exhausted. Her mother's out of town. The house is empty, quiet, too still. As she drifts into sleep, she hears whispers. The walls creak, the sound of claws against the floorboards. She opens her eyes. The room stretches. The wallpaper peels away into ash. She's dreaming, trapped in a copy of her own home, warped and rotting. Freddy's voice echoes. "You remember me, don't you?" She runs, screaming through the halls of her nightmare, but every door leads back to her bedroom, and there he is, Freddy, smiling through burned skin, his glove raised high. "You're my number one." He slashes her across the chest. In the real world, Jesse wakes beside her, covered in blood, staring in shock as Chris's body lifts into the air, invisible claws tearing her apart. He screams for help, but she's already gone. Jesse flees into the night, soaked in blood, his mind spinning. He runs to Nancy's house, the only person who might believe him. But the police arrive first. Jesse is arrested, shouting her name, begging them to listen. In the holding cell, alone and trembling, he falls asleep, and as his head drops forward, the nightmare begins again. The walls around him melt away, the floor darkening into pools of sludge. Freddy emerges from the shadows, dragging his blades across the concrete. "You can't save her, Jesse. You can't even save yourself." Jesse screams, pounding on the walls of his dream. But in the real world, guards find him moments later, impaled through the chest, hanging in mid-air. No one knows how it happened, no one wants to. After Jesse's death, Nancy begins to see the truth. Something is wrong, not just with her friends, but with all of them. Each of the kids who have died went to the same preschool, and all of them share the same nightmares. A burned man, a red and green sweater, knives for fingers. She and Quentin, a quiet classmate, start digging. They find old records, files buried in the school basement. There was a gardener, Freddy Krueger, accused of harming children. But before he could face trial, the parents took matters into their own hands. They found him hiding in the boiler room beneath the preschool, and they burned him alive. Now, Freddy is back, not in body, but in dreams, and the children of those parents are his victims. The days blur into nights. Nancy and Quentin fight to stay awake, desperate to avoid sleep. They gulp down caffeine, take pills, splash cold water on their faces, but exhaustion is relentless. Every time they close their eyes, Freddy is waiting. Nancy dreams of being dragged through hallways lined with photographs of herself as a child. In one vision, she sees Freddy's lair, a furnace room filled with children's drawings and small shoes. She wakes screaming, claw marks on her arms. Quentin finds her trembling, soaked in sweat. He admits he's been seeing the same thing, the same man, the same fire. Together, they realize that if they stay awake long enough, their brains will start micro-napping, slipping into dream states, even while conscious. Freddy can attack them anywhere, anytime. They return to the old preschool, where it all began. The building is abandoned, its walls scorched black, the smell of smoke still faint in the air. Nancy's flashlight flickers as they descend into the basement. There, beneath the cracked foundation, they find the remains of Freddy's hideout. Children's toys, crayon drawings, tiny handprints burned into the walls. The truth is worse than they imagined. Freddy was guilty. He had been abusing them, the children of Elm Street, when they were too young to remember. The nightmares are not only vengeance, they are memories resurfacing. Freddy's voice slithers through the dark. "You buried me once, but I'm still here." Nancy collapses, too weak to fight the pull of sleep any longer. The world flickers. When she opens her eyes, she's standing in the boiler room, Freddy's world, glowing with molten light and shadow. The walls pulse like veins, steam hisses. Freddy stalks her, dragging his blades along the metal. "Every time you close your eyes, you see me. You know why? Because I'm all that's left." Nancy screams and runs, but the corridors twist endlessly. Freddy lunges, claws slicing through air. At the last second, Quentin appears, still half awake, pulling her out of the dream. They've realized the only way to kill him is to drag him into the real world. Nancy falls asleep one last time. Freddy appears instantly, laughing, mocking, ready to kill. But this time she fights back. She forces herself to hold on, to focus, to pull his burning form across the threshold between dream and waking. The room shatters, the world flips. Nancy jolts awake, gasping, covered in sweat and blood, and Freddy is there, dragged into reality, roaring in fury. They fight inside the burning remains of the boiler room, fire reflecting off his blades. Freddy slashes her arm, but she drives a broken pipe through his chest. "You're in my world now, bitch." "No," she whispers. "You're in mine." She cuts his throat, sets him on fire, and watches his body crumble into ash. For the first time in days, there is silence. Days later, Nancy and her mother return home. The sun shines through the windows. It's over. It should be over. Nancy looks into the mirror, and in that reflection, Freddy's burned face appears behind her. His claw bursts through the glass, impaling her mother, dragging her screaming into the mirror's void. Nancy screams. The mirror shatters. The house falls silent again. The nightmare isn't over. Dreams are where we're supposed to be safe, where we escape from reality. But in Springwood, sleep is a trap, because Freddy Krueger is still there, waiting in the dark between thoughts, in the heartbeat before you wake. He is the memory you tried to forget, the sin buried in your childhood, and he will never let you rest.